Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena and Brothers War. Quick drafts are back on Arena, so today we'll be doing another one of those. Without further ado, let's just get into it. We've got a pretty sweet pack one. We don't have a great rare. Deathbloom Ritualist is super slow. If you're getting mana off of a 5 mana card, you're probably already doing pretty well on that front, and this is pretty inconsistent too. You want to have a ton of cards in your creature to get a ton of mana out of it, so super slow card, not the greatest, but we have some excellent uncommons. The awkward thing is they're both gold. Yoshin Tactician is only going to work in a blue-white soldiers deck, but it will be fantastic in there. And Arbalest Engineers is only really going to work in the red-green aggro ramp deck, but it's going to be fantastic in there. So really depends on which one of these archetypes you prefer, and I think the blue-white soldiers archetype was one of the strongest archetypes in the format. There's also a lot of really fun, really powerful artifact soldiers you can throw into that deck, and I do like my scrapwork cohorts that are like a 4 mana 3/1 that spit out 1/1 tokens and stuff like that quite a bit. So I'm going to go for Yoshin Tactician here, but I think Arbalest Engineers would be super reasonable too. It is a card that only fits into the red-green deck, but during gameplay when you're casting it, it is super flexible, being able to shoot down a small creature from your opponent, being able to buff one of your own creatures, or being able to ramp you up with that Powerstone token. So it makes it so it's a great draw pretty much at any point of the game. Really nice card. Outside of these two, I think the next best cards would be something like Scrapwork Rager or Burnished Heart as the best colorless cards that could fit into kind of any archetype if you want to stay really open right off the bat, which is one of the pretty fun things you can do in a lot of these artifact-focused formats like Brothers War and Kaladesh and stuff like that. You can just take artifacts really, really highly because you know they can end up in your deck no matter what. And there's enough colorless mana fixing in the format that you can pretty easily splash in the Unearth effects on cards like Scrapwork Rager. So I think it'd be a pretty reasonable pack one, pick one as well. But I'm going to go for a little bit of a more bold pick here. I think Yoshin Tactician and Engineers are more than strong enough to justify taking a 2-colored card right off the bat and hoping that that archetype works out for you. But we'll see. We'll see how it progresses as we move into pack 1, pick 2, where we have a Combat Courier. Excellent, flexible card. Really good in any blue deck, but solid in any deck that has a little bit of fixing to get to the Unearth. There's also Evangel of Synthesis, which is another pretty strong multicolored signpost uncommon. I think the Tactician's a bit stronger. I'd rather not start with two kind of competing multicolored cards right off the bat, but we could definitely go for the Evangel there. Outside of Evangel and Courier, there's Energy Refractor, ends up fitting into most decks as one of those colorless pieces of fixing, as I said before, that helps you unearth cards that are off color. There's also Argothian Opportunist for green ramp stuff, but that obviously doesn't go with Tactician at all. Yeah, I think Refractor, Courier, and Evangel are the best follow-ups to Yoshin Tactician as our pack 1, pick 1. But if this were our pack 1, pick 1, then I think it'd probably be more like Opportunist Synthesis Courier. I think I'd throw the Opportunist into the mix there when we don't have any blue cards yet. But these are all great options. I'm going to go for the Combat Courier here. Pack 1, pick 3 now. No Incredible Soldiers. Yoshin Medic's fine. Air Marshal is fine. I think I will actually take the gold signpost uncommon this time, though. Junkyard Genius is just absurd. I think it's the strongest of all the 2-color uncommons in the format. 3 mana for a 2/2. You get a tapped Powerstone token. You can sacrifice another creature or artifact to give all of your other creatures +1/+0 menace and haste until end of turn. So it is both a sacrifice enabler and a sacrifice engine for the black-red sacrifice deck in this format, which is really, really powerful. It gives you the Powerstone to sacrifice. It gives you the effect to sacrifice stuff. It's just an absurdly powerful card. It's even mana ramp because the Powerstone can just be used for mana for your artifact spells. Junkyard Genius is an incredible black-red uncommon, and we might try to push in that direction instead of blue-white here. We'll see. Alright, pack 1, pick 4 I think is going to convince me to try to head down the black-red direction instead of the blue-white direction. Didn't see any particularly good blue or white last pack, don't see any particularly good blue or white this pack either. We do have a Take Flight, which is kind of high variance. Like, if you play this and your opponent doesn't have removal for whatever creature you put this on, within the first couple of turns, This is going to draw you more than enough cards to be worth the cost, and it's going to win you the game pretty quickly, getting that far ahead in card advantage. But if you cast this and your opponent has the instant speed removal for it the second it hits the board, then sometimes you're really down pretty far because you lose your creature and the aura, and you haven't even drawn a card off of it if it was an instant. So kind of coin flippy, but when it pops off, it really does. So it's probably the best blue card. Weakstone Subjugation, a close second. But in black, we have Overwhelming Remorse, which is fantastic removal. 5 mana for an instant that exiles any creature or planeswalker is already pretty great in draft. And this gets a big cost reduction, costing 1 less to cast for each creature in your graveyard. So it can just keep getting more and more consistent the later the game goes. Ridiculously good piece of removal. That's what I'm going to take here. But even Monastery Swiftspear is probably the second best card in the pack out of red-black. Just a 1 mana 1/2 haste prowess. Really fast, really aggressive card. That is also super, super good. So the best cards are in black and red. So we can probably head in that direction with our Junkyard Genius. And we are certainly going to get a great follow-up. Ashnod's Harvester is a great aggressive creature. 3 power for only 2 mana. And it returns itself with that Unearth effect to hit your opponent again later. Super good aggro dork. Its ability to exile cards from a grave is great too, because pretty much every deck has access to Unearth cards. Unearth is a colorless ability in this format. They put it on a bunch of different artifact creatures in every single color. There's a little bit of blue Unearth with Combat Courier, a lot of black and red Unearth with Ashnod's Harvester and some Scrapwork Mutt and stuff, a little bit of white Unearth. There might not be any green Unearth now that I think of it. Actually, there is. There's at least one uncommon that's like a mask that spits out an XX or something. But every color has at least a little bit of graveyard synergies for the card to hose, as well as being a super good aggressive body. Got some fierce competition for pack 1, pick 6, but again, the best cards are in red and black, so happy to be where we're at. It's a competition between Sibling Rivalry and Powerstone Fracture. So Powerstone Fracture can sack a 1/1 or a Power Stone that you have to destroy any target. Sibling Rivalry lets you steal an opposing artifact or creature, and then ideally you sacrifice it to something like a Junkyard Genius. So we already have one effect to sacrifice an opposing creature, hopefully get a few more with cards like Pendragon Strongbow and stuff to sacrifice artifact creatures. I think Sibling Rivalry just has a much higher upside than Powerstone Fracture. And when we already have one incredible straight-up removal spell, I'm going to go for the Sibling Rivalry. If I had 0 removal, I might go for the kind of weaker removal spell here over the big active treason potential combo win condition sort of thing. But I think I'm happy to take Sibling Rivalry with an Overwhelming Remorse in the bag for now. And pack 1, pick 7, we get a Scrapwork Rager, which is a solid value play with that Unearth effect. Pyrrhic Blast is a bit too high costed for my taste as a sacrifice effect. I much prefer to have sacrifice engines, cards that stay on the board and can sacrifice things repeatably. Cards like Junkyard Genius that can keep sacrificing things as long as you have the mana for it. Pendragon Strongbow can keep sacrificing things as long as you have the mana for it. Pyrrhic Blast is just kind of like a one and done. One big sacrifice, one big effect for a pretty high mana commitment. Not super into that. We'll go for the Scrapwork Rager here. And again, Scrapwork Rager, one of the best cards in the pack. Feels like we are in the best colors to be for pack 1 at least. Pick 8 is pretty weak all around. I'm not a huge fan of Scrapsmith, but you could get a little bit of your Unearth cards into grave for some extra value. Mineworker's just real bad. 2 mana, 2/1, doesn't do much else. Evolving Wilds can actually play pretty well in this archetype because there are cards like the Goblin Runner thing. It's been too long since I played this format. There's a 1 mana 1/2 Goblin at common that gets +2/+0 and Menace every time you've sacrificed a permanent during the turn. So with Evolving Wilds, you can even just sack a land and trigger that thing to be able to attack as a 1 mana 3/2 Menace, which is absurd. So we'll take the Evolving Wilds here. Pick 9, there's not really much left outside of Scrapwork Rager. Heart can be fun for those rampy decks, but that's certainly not what Black-Red is doing. I'll take another Scrapwork Rager, and there's the card. Goblin Blast Runner is the name. We'll pretty happily take that for this archetype. It's a pretty high pick because you have cards like Junkyard Genius that can potentially trigger it over and over. Especially Pendragon Strongbow is this card's best friend, because with that, you can sacrifice artifacts for only 1 mana. so you can really easily get this to go consistently, but super strong card. Energy Refractor is a really strong, really flexible card, though, for fixing in pretty much any deck. Helps you splash in some off-color stuff or some off-color Unearth effects like that on Combat Courier. But honestly, in this archetype, even without the Unearth, Combat Courier is still going to be fine to work with Goblin Blast Runner, so I'm going to take the Blast Runner over the Refractor. It's actually kind of close, though, now that I think of it. The ability to hit those off-color Unearth effects is great, and the Refractor really makes it worth your while because it replaces itself by drawing you a card the second it hits the board, no matter what, so it's a very low cost to running it in your deck. Still going to go for the Blast Runner, though. It can just be part of some much more explosive plays. Speaking of explosive plays, Infiltrator can technically lead to some pretty explosive stuff. A 2-mana 2/1's pretty bad, but it's not too hard to make this a 3/2. Sometimes you get it to be a 4/3. That's when it starts getting explosive. So Infiltrator would be fine. Pretty bad draw in the late game, though. I like Juggernaut as well. It's not good when you need to block because you have to attack with it over and over. But 5/3 trample that Unearths one time is just a lot of damage in the late game. Like, it's a solid finisher for the strategy, so neither of these are super premium cards I take really, really highly, but they're both fine for the deck. They both do work for sure. I think I would rather load up on my cheap creatures first, so I'm going to grab a Gixian Infiltrator and add it into the deck. Get those kind of 5-6 drops later. Alright, I'm almost certain I'm not going to play an Aeronaut's Wings. I also don't think I'll be playing a Levitating Statue, but I think I'll take it over Aeronaut's Wings here. We end up with a super high non-creature spell count. This is really best in blue decks that have Mightstone's animation, because you can attach that to this artifact to make it a 4/4 creature straight up. So it's just immediately a 4/4 flyer with a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, which is massive. That can kill somebody super quick. Alright, we'll take a Power Plant Worker. Not very excited about it. Goblin Firebomb that we'd like to end up cutting, and we'll see what we open up in pack 2. Alright, well, I'm very, very sad about this pack, and it's because the pack is way too good, and I can only take one card. I think I'm going to take Transmigrant's Crown. It's a pretty fun, pretty powerful rare. It's pretty good in this archetype too, because we're going to be trading creatures off all the time. But being able to draw a card off of every single creature you're trading off of is just pretty absurd. That being said, there's some really premium commons for the archetype. There's a Scrapwork Cohort, which, while it is a white Unearth effect, is still really good for this deck because we're getting 2 bodies off 1 card, both of which are artifacts. Especially good when you do have an Energy Refractor or 2 to unearth it later, so I do like Scrapwork Cohort for the archetype. I really like Penregan Strongbow for the archetype. I've already spoken about this several times because of how well it works with cards like Goblin Blast Runner and Sibling Rivalry. And then there's also Scrapwork Mutt, which is a really good Unearth card. 2-mana 2/1 hits the board early, discards a card, draws a card, sets you up with whatever you need to draw into, and then it can unearth for really cheap later as well. And unearth creatures also work really well with sacrifice effects because they're going to die at the end step anyway when you unearth them, so you kind of get some free extra sacrifice value. So these 3 are all incredible commons for this archetype, and then Powerstone Fracture and Mishra's Juggernaut are still pretty good, so just a ridiculously good pack for us. We're hoping to wheel at least one of those cards, get one of them to come back. Speaking of packs that are much better than I would hope they would be, we have Pack 2 Pick 2 with an Excavation Explosion competing with a Scrapwork Mutt. 2 cards that are, again, super, super good. The Explosion is cheap removal or burn to our opponent's face. That also gives us a Powerstone token we can use to ramp into larger artifact creatures and then sacrifice that artifact later. So it's super flexible and powerful. And then there's the Scrapwork Mutt again for that really cheap, really good value creature. There's also a Scrapwork Rager, but I already have 2 of those. There's also a Powerstone Fracture, but I definitely take Explosion over that. So Explosion versus Scrapwork Mutt, really close. Both are incredible. I think I'm gonna go for the Excavation Explosion. I think it's just super, super good for this deck, but it hurts to see a bunch of Scrapwork Mutts that I'm gonna end up passing here. Alright, Pack 2 Pick 3 gives us a mythic rare black-red card. We're never going to be able to meld this card, but a 4-mana 3/5 is an okay body with a really good effect. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So you just get to keep draining your opponent a bunch of life just while you're naturally attacking them. Mishra claimed by Gix is quite a big, beefy, scary card here, and it's not competing with too much. I think Rock Hunter and Sibling Rivalry would both be solid for the deck. Not quite as good as Mishra. Same with Combat Courier would be good here, but Mishra seems pretty dang strong, especially if we're incredibly lucky and we can pick up a Phyrexian Dragon Engine to try to meld them together, but that's really not necessary. We'll take a Mishra claimed by Gix. Pack 2, pick 4. We probably need to take a 2-drop creature here to fill out our 1s and 2s a lot better. I guess I could take another Courier, but we don't have any blue fixing yet. I don't really want to Evolving Wilds for an island. I'd really just rather have an Energy Refractor or Chromatic Star or something, and just probably not unearth this Courier that much, so I think I'd rather have an Infiltrator or a Rock Hunter, both quite solid. I think I'm going to go for the Infiltrator here, kind of be all in on this archetype. More sacrifice value. We now have Juggernaut as that kind of finisher, Emergency Weld for some graveyard reanimation value. That might be good when we have cards like Mishra and Junkyard Genius. Try to make them a little more redundant, kind of like an extra copy of them. And it gives us a 1/1 expendable soldier. I think I like Emergency Weld here. It's also Thraxidemon for a good sacrifice effect. Good sacrifice outlet. And then a Combat Courier for another cheap one. But I'm going to go Emergency Weld to make sure that we could potentially pick up a Mishra or a Junkyard Genius if they die throughout the game. It's a pretty good graveyard recursion spell. Pack 2, pick 6. We get another Excavation Explosion. Feels good to be in red. I do kind of wish I took the Scrapwork Mutt now, though. But it is what it is. I think one of each of 1 Explosion, 1 Mutt would be better than double Explosion. But I think the first Explosion feels a little more important to me, if that makes any sense. Just getting more removal into the deck, especially premium removal like this, is always going to be super important. And the worst case scenario when we don't have Scrapwork Mutts is that we have like slightly weaker creatures on 2, which is still fine. Alright, we've got a Conscripted Infantry that can trade off into being 2 creatures off 1 card for sack effects. A 3rd Gixian Infiltrator, that feels a little redundant. Locust is just fine, it doesn't really synergize with our deck in any way. And there's Soul Guide Lantern if I really want things I can sacrifice. That'll trigger the double Infiltrator and the Blast Runner. I guess I do want to have a million sack effects, so Soul Guide Lantern is just 2 mana, draw a card, but also trigger all of our sack cards. Might make the cut. I'm gonna... Well, no, because I'd have to spend a non-creature slot on that, and our non-creature spells are really good. Remorse, Sibling Rivalry, Double Explosion, Emergency Weld, Transmigrant's Crown. It would be hard to fit a Soul Guide Lantern in here, even with Blast Runner, Double Infiltrator, so I think I might actually... I don't know, it's... I would have put an Infantry in instead of the Lantern, or I'd take a 3rd Infiltrator and then still have really low count on these random sack effects. Yeah, I think whatever I take here is pretty unlikely to get played, but... It does feel like I don't really have any room for Soul Guide Lantern. I'll just take another Infiltrator. Not super pumped about that one. Pick 8. Whirling Strike is a fine combat trick. It's a lot of extra damage and probably doesn't make the cut, but nothing else in this pack does. And we get a pick 9 Penregan Strongbull. I am super happy to see that because that's a very important card. Ups our amount of sacrifice effects to go with our triple Infiltrator and our 1 Blast Runner. Super important. Makes our Sibling Rivalry a lot better as well. Very happy to get the Strongbull back. We also got a Powerstone Fracture back. We'll happily scoop that up. Don't know if that one's going to make the cut, but we'll find out. Sibling Rivalry now that we have a Strongbull and a Genius and a Powerstone Fracture. This would be our 2nd rivalry, but I think it's better than a first Gigamole here. Yeah, I already have 3 4-drop creatures. I'm not really going to put a Gigamole in. Let's grab a Sibling Rivalry number 2. Grab a Sentinel Stalwart we will not be playing. Power Plant Worker that I will not be playing. Battlefield Butcher I might actually play. Very good activated ability, even if it is pretty slow. You can win the game if the board ever gets stalled out. Alright, pack 3. Pick number 1. I'm about to pass up on another Scrapwork Mutt because Horned Stone Seeker is the truth. 2 mana for a 2/2 menace that comes with a Power Stone token. When it leaves the battlefield, you also have to sacrifice that Power Stone, but until then, it is way above rate 2 mana, 2/2 menace already above curve, and you get that Powerstone for ramp to play like a Scrapwork Rager on turn 3 instead of turn 4. Card is absurd to the point where I will take it over Scrapwork Mutt, but I think that is the second best card in this pack for us. Outside of that, there's like a Moment of Defiance, or we could try to splash in a Hero of the Dunes, which is really big, but we can't really splash in the double white rare that is the strongest card, but not for us. We're going to be on the Horned Stoneseeker here, which is absurd. Happy to open that up. Pack 3, pick 2, I will finally take my first Scrapwork Mutt, because our other options are Bitter Reunion, which is a fine draw spell. It comes with a sacrifice effect attached, which is why it's good, because it would trigger the Infiltrators and Blast Runners. But Scrapwork Mutt is just more consistent, better in more positions of the game, so I prefer that. There's also the Pyrrhic Blast, already talked about why I didn't like that much. And then there's like a 5-drop Trench Stalker, which is kind of slow for us. And Ramos is very cool, but we're a 2-color deck, and this is a 6-mana 4/4, and not exactly what we're interested in. Come on in, Scrapwork Mutt. Join the team. Well, I'm not going to be heavy enough into red for Sardian Cliff Stomper to get the 4 more mountains too often, so I'm not super pumped about that. I am relatively pumped about a 3rd copy of Excavation Explosion, but this is yet another one that makes me miss the Scrapwork Mutt we could have taken over the first Excavation Explosion. Again, 2 and 2, probably better than 1 and 3, but a 3rd Excavation Explosion is better than anything else in this pack. So join the party. Really getting paid off with pack 3. We're getting a 2nd copy of Horned Stoneseeker now. Pick 4, Slam Dunk, instant include. Pick 5, I think I'm going to take Elsewhere Flask here as a solid mana fixer that also gives us a sacrifice trigger. So it can get our off-color blue source for the Combat Courier, while just being a random mana fixing card. It's like an Energy Refractor, but it only works 1 time. However, we don't have to spend any extra mana to use it, like we do with the Energy Refractor. Like I have to spend 2 mana to get 1 mana out of Refractor, but with this I just sack it and then I get all my lands or just the mana whichever color I chose. I think Elsewhere Flask, if you only really need the fixing like 1 time, it's slightly better, and a decent bit better if you only need the fixing 1 time and you have things that care about sacrificing, which is exactly what we have here. We care about sacrificing and we're only going to need the fixing once on average, so I'll take the Flask over Refractor. Outside of that, Clay Revenant is just way too slow to pop off that crazy with sacrifice effects. And Trench Stalker is a good finisher when you have a lot of card draw, but I only have a little bit. It works with Scrapwork Mutt and Combat Courier. I guess double Scrapwork Rager. This is actually a solid finisher, but I think I still want the fixing here. And I'll scoop it up. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and edit the deck a bit here in the middle of pack 3 so we can know exactly what we're looking for, because we could get another 2-drop creature, or we could get another filler removal spell. Neither of those are perfect. I honestly don't think we end up playing either of them, but we can make 100% certain by just kind of building our deck right now. So if we don't count Evolving Wilds, we're at 28 cards, which is 5 more than we need. We want to be at about 17 creatures for a deck this aggressive, so I guess that would just mean take the creature, because we're at 16 right now. But for the non-creature spells, that would mean we want to cut a lot of these, so probably Firebomb is the least efficient. Whirling Strike doesn't feel great when I've got like Triple Explosion, Double Rivalry nonsense. Still need to cut more of these. I might cut Emergency Weld, but I like the idea of it with the Mishra and the Junkyard. It's also good with Stoneseeker. Fine there. Yeah, I mean, Triple Explosion and Overwhelming Remorse, it really just doesn't feel like I'm going to have room for a second Powerstone Fraction, maybe not even the first. So I think it's pretty easily just the 2 mana 3/1 here. But yeah, I guess that's enough deck building to figure out which we needed to pick there. Alright, and I'm definitely going to have to make room for another Pendragon Strongbow, so I guess I'll cut the 5-drop Power Plant Worker there. That's a pretty easy swap out. And then pack 3, pick 8, we get a Thraxidemon for consistent sack engine if we need it. Pack 3, pick 9, I only have the 1 Elsewhere Flask. I don't think I'm going to go for Hero of the Dunes. I've got an Evolving Wilds too, but because it's part of the casting cost instead of just an off-color Unearth effect, we do desperately need that white mana to do anything with the card up front. But this is a big finisher. This card's really good in a black-white deck, and I've splashed it a lot when I have 2 or 3 energy refractors in an Evolving Wilds. I'll just put like 1 planes in my deck and go to town, but I don't have that much fixing. That being said, I mean, the other options are like Raise to the Ground, which I don't generally like too much when you can put cards like Powerstone, Fracture, or Overwhelming Remorse in instead, which are just better most of the time, because almost all the artifacts you're going to want to kill are going to be artifact creatures. Moment of Defiance is kind of a nasty combat trick, but again, I don't think I'm going to have room in the non-creatures, so I'm just going to slam a Hero of the Dunes into the sideboard. Feels unlikely we play it. It's kind of cute to have the option. Pick 10 now. I could try to make room for Bitter Reunion to go with our Gixian Infiltrator nonsense, but I got the double Strongbow Genius things going on already. I'm actually going to take Trench Stalker, because I think it's really nice with like the double Scrapwork Rager. If you can consistently make this a Death Touch Lifelinker, a 5-mana 4/5 Death Touch Lifelinker, pretty much impossible to erase. Your opponent just has to kill that like instantaneously. Take a Skullflayer, but I'm not really going to have room for it at 3 mana. I've already cut my first copy of Whirling Strike though, so I'm not going to get another one in. Pack 3, pick 12, 4th copy of Gixian Infiltrator. I'm probably not playing all of those, but who knows. Get Trench Stalker. Maybe double up. I'm not going to splash Skyfisher. I mean, it's just as likely as the hero, but that's like 1%. Take Trench Stalker here. Guess I will take a Raise to the Ground, but we will not be playing that. Alright, so we have 48 cards in here. We have 21 creatures and some amount of non-creatures. We want to be at about 17 creatures for this deck, so we can go ahead and cut 4 of the creatures wherever we want them. First off, I think one of the easiest things to do here to cut down on the deck would be to drop like Elsewhere Flask, Combat Courier, and then I just don't have to worry about the fixing. We've just got 1 Evolving Wilds for a 2-color deck, which is fine, so we could just plop those out immediately. And then I still need to cut 3 more creatures, at 20 creatures left in the deck. Probably some 2-drops, there's a lot of these. 4 Infiltrator is a lot. Thraxodemon's a little bit slow compared to our other sacrifice engines, and then Rock Hunter doesn't do anything extra. At 3 mana, Junkyard Genius and Strongbow are incredible. Battlefield Butcher is definitely a bit slow for this archetype. 4 mana, again, Scrapwork Raiders are a little bit slow for this archetype, as are the Trench Stalkers at 5 mana. So these are our options of what we want to cut. We're cutting 3 more of these, and I've set aside 8, 9, 10, 11 cards, so I can put 8 of them back into the deck. Let's go... When we're down to just Strongbow Junkyard Genius, as sacrifice effects, the Infiltrators do feel quite a bit weaker, because I'm probably going to have to end up cutting Powerstone, Fracture, and stuff as well. So I might even cut like all the Infiltrators, and we go 2-drop Thraxodemon Rock Hunter. I miscounted. I thought I was 11 of these. I'm way off. Oh no, it is 11 of these. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so yeah, I'm putting 8 back in. So 1, 2... Actually, really don't like the Battlefield Butcher. Feels extra slow. 1, 2... 3, 4. Put in the double Rager. Put in 1 Stalker for 5. And I guess I put 3 Infiltrators back in then. Still end up playing most of them, but that's 17 creatures here. I want to offload a bit of the high mana value stuff to do there. We still want 17 lands because we have a lot of expensive abilities to be playing around with. We've got Unearths from Ragers that are 4 mana, 3 mana Junkyard Genius abilities. So we could reasonably have a lot of positions where we end up like wanting to Unearth a Rager and then cast whatever we drew off of it, or Unearth a Rager then sack it to a Junkyard Genius. Both of those would take like 6, 7 mana pretty consistently. We also want to be able to Sibling Rivalry and then pay for a sacrifice effect, so that's expensive as well. So this is 17 creatures. 3 cuts to go. They're all going to be non-creature cards. I love the triple explosion Overwhelming Remorse, which means I think we can drop Fracture and maybe Emergency Weld. Although, double Strongbow Junkyard Genius, are those 3 cards really enough to make Sibling Rivalry crazy? not really, but we also have a million 2-mana creatures, so we could be using Sibling Rivalry just to kill somebody. Not necessarily sack the creature that we steal, it could just be a finisher too, so... Yeah, I guess I'll drop Powerstone, Fracture, Emergency Weld, and if a Mishra dies, if a Junkyard Genius dies, so be it. Hopefully we still just kill our opponent afterward. And we are at 17 creatures, 7 non-creatures, 41 cards total, so we still need to cut one more card. I guess maybe I do cut one Sibling Rivalry, because Transmigrant's Crown, Triple Explosion, and Remorse are all definitely better. Although we could just drop down to 16 creatures, that's still not bad. That's still pretty high. Just cut one more Infiltrator. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 2-mana creatures. Sure. Feels good to me. Those will be the final cuts to the deck. Let's make sure our mana base is functioning well. We have 13 red cards, 7 black cards. We have 0 cards in the entire deck that require more than 1 mana of their color. So no double red, no double black. So we can rely pretty much just on the numbers of each, which is going to be a bit more red than black. Currently got a bit more red than black there. I feel like we could go pretty equal here, though. I have 4 red cards at 2 mana or less and 3 black cards at 2 mana or less, so early in the game it's basically the same number. But then on 3 mana it's just like all red cards. And onward from there. Honestly, I feel like 50-50 doesn't feel that bad, but 8 black sources, 7 Swamp and Evolving Wilds is still enough to, on average, have that pretty much every single game. Just make it really, really likely we always start with that red source. Yeah, 9-7 is fine. That's super reasonable here. We'll go with that. I think that's going to be the deck. We will just wrap it up and call it a deck there. Alright, here we have a look at today's deck, which is going to be a black-red sacrifice aggro deck, which is exactly what we want to be doing in this format, in this archetype. We have a ton of aggressive 2-mana creatures. We have 8 of them in total, I believe, which is a nice amount to make sure we are always curving out, at least from turn 2 onward, slamming creatures onto the board. We have tons of ways to keep the path clear with 3 Excavation Explosion and Overwhelming Remorse. Late in the game, we can cast some Sibling Rivalries to steal our opponent's last blocker and kill them with it, or potentially sacrifice that blocker to something like a Junkyard Genius or a Pendragon Strongbow if it's an artifact creature. So some really, really aggressive stuff where we're putting a bunch of power on the board, dealing with our opponent's blockers, and just trying to outrace our opponent as quickly as possible. We have some really good value in this deck as well. Transmigrant's Crown makes it so whenever what's equipped with the crown trades off into something, we get to draw a card. 2 Scrapwork Ragers can also draw cards, and we have plenty of Power Stones to be able to help cast these for even cheaper off of Junkyard Genius, double Stone Seeker, triple Excavation Explosion, double Sibling Rivalry. Tons of ways to get those Power Stones for these and their Unearth effect as well. And then we've got a Trench Stalker at the top end, with the Scrapwork Rager, Scrapwork Mutt, and Transmigrant's Crown potential card draw. We might be gaining a little bit of life off of the Trench Stalker ability as well at the top end, which is nice. So that's all of the aggro stuff, that's all the card advantage stuff. To top it all off, one final card to talk about. Mishra, claimed by Gix, is our massive bomb. When we have 8 2-drops to make sure that we are loading the board with creatures as quickly as possible, this is going to be quite an impactful play on turn 4. We get to play this, attack with 2 or 3 creatures, immediately drain our opponent for 2 or 3 life, and keep going from there to get a bunch of extra damage in. Even if our opponent manages to block and trade off with everything, we still get some points of damage in. So really strong looking deck today. Very excited to see how it plays out, but we'll find out soon enough as we head into the gameplay. Here we are on the play for game 1 with a turn 1 creature to play. We don't have anything to sacrifice with the Goblin Blast Runner, so it's just going to be attacking as a 1-2, but still being able to play a creature turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3 is going to be a pretty aggressive start. It's exactly what we want to see. Well, a 1-2 plays pretty well against the 1-1 at least. Don't love trading either of these into the 1-1 Stalwart, but it keeps them off of mana, which is still going to be valuable. Suppose I should probably play the Unearth card first, even if I'm less likely to get value from the Exile ability as it attacks. Better to trade something that can unearth than something that can't. We are going to trade into the Stalwart, so they won't be getting any mana ramp off of it. Now we'll just drop a Rock Hunter and pass the turn. They are mono green so far. Drop a Tower Worker turn 3, so they are very much ramping up. Drawn to a sibling rivalry, which doesn't really do anything for me right now. I don't like not really having any removal here, but if I don't use removal on Tower Worker, then I don't really hit them much. I guess I could offer the trade of Rock Hunter into it, and they probably don't accept that. I only hit them for 1 more damage if I remove the Tower Worker, but keeping them off of ramp does feel powerful. And then whenever they do have the mana to play some big green dork, we just hit them with it with Sibling Rivalry. Might be a little weird, but I think I am going to just slow them down with Overwhelming Remorse and hit for 4. Hope we can kill them fast enough that we just steal their big green creature and attack them with it. Ooh, Obstinate Baloth is incredible here. If they had Boulder Branch Golem, it would just be okay, because they're still far off from the 7 mana effect, but Obstinate Baloth 4/4 and gain 4, significantly better than the Boulder Branch Golem would be a 3/3 and gain 3 right now. So, premium uncommon for them. That is going to hold us off for now. I guess we got to just play Scrapwork Rager and set up then. Not at all what I like to see here. Especially after the last line we went for, trying to be as aggressive as possible. Alright, Stone Retrieval Unit gives them another Power Stone towards a potential Boulder Branch Golem. That's a 7 mana card. Drawn to a Scrapwork Mutt, but I could also just run out a Trench Stalker here. Which I will do for now. And that is the 6th mana for our opponent when it comes to casting artifacts. And there's the Excavation, gain 3, get 3 Power Stones. Now they could cast pretty much anything. Now I'm kind of hoping they have the 10/10 Reach Trample. Stealing that and trying to hit them with it feels like it'd be pretty sweet. I can go ahead and Scrapwork Mutt now. Attacking with a Death Touch Lifelinking Trench Stalker, they'd have to double block to kill it. And I'd kill both their creatures. And we get to play a Strongbow, so if they play a big artifact creature, we steal it and kill it. Which is probably what they're planning on doing, seeing as they're making so many Power Stones. Their top end is probably a bunch of artifact creatures. I forgot to play my Strongbow. I cannot believe I clicked one too many times. I hate my monkey brain so much sometimes. Yeah, there's the creature to steal. It does have Ward 4, so I guess we wouldn't be able to steal it this turn regardless, which is not good. Ward 4 is a very big deal. So... Alright, that still played out really poorly for me. I can't... That was such a massive misclick, obviously. Huge misclick punt. But if we did not misclick, then the play would probably be to sack the Rager and Unearth it this turn, so that I could attack with Trench Stalker here. Now I don't have to do that. Now I can just reanimate a Scrapwork Mutt or a Rager without having to sack it to the Strongbow, just get a chump block off of it. I think I want to block with Rager and then reanimate, attack with Trench Stalker. As a Death Toucher, Mask of the Jadecrafter, that can give them some massive tokens. Burnished Heart for even more ramp. Thraxidemon for us, so let's Scrapwork Rager. Trying to get to 9 mana. A lot of mana. Alright, send in a Trench Stalker. There's not really a reason not to attack with the Scrapwork Rager, is there? Just sack it to the Strongbow if it gets blocked. And if it doesn't, then cool, 2 more damage. Alright, chump sack with Burnished Heart so we don't gain any life. It's a pretty big bummer. We still shoot them for 1, get a counter on the Gixian Infiltrator. They're down to 16. If this were any other big dork, I would be having a great time with the steel and sack, where it's the ward, and I'm having a bad time. Scrapwork Mutt's probably going to discard Thraxodemon, I guess, because we're just trying to hit a bunch of lands right now. I guess if I play Thraxodemon, then I have an instant speed way to draw a card, but I need to draw 2 cards in one turn, so I'd have to draw 2 cards during my opponent's turn, which would be pretty hard. Mishra might just kill our opponent out of nowhere. Oh my god, yeah, Mishra's really, really good. Drain them for 5 life on an attack right now. Could be more later. Do I Harvester away their Mask of the Tradecrafter? Let them make another 11/11. I don't think I play Mishra right now. I think that's going to be my play for next turn. I guess I can't play Mishra and Sibling Rivalry in the same turn. If I play it now, it's my only play for the turn. I could play Thraxodemon plus reanimate something plus sacrifice something to Strongbowl. I think I'm going to do that. Go for a Trench Stalker attack here. Guess I could. I like their masked creature is going to have haste. Double block, so we get 2 creatures out of the way for our big combat in the future. So if they just reanimate the mask and make a giant creature, they're going to have 2 blockers total, because I'm going to steal one of those tokens. With Sibling Rivalry. They block the giant creature, not the others. They attack with the 11/11 as well. If I get them to a board state where they have 1 blocker, and they have to chump block the giant golem, they take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's not quite lethal. 13, 14 off Blast Runner, 15 off Strongbowl. I think if they just tap out for Mask, I can lethal on the Crackback. So I'm going to take this, go to 7. Because Strongbowl shoots for 1 extra damage, Blast Runner hits for 2 more than it looks like. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Like a lot of damage. Okay, so they're just going to play multiple blockers, and then we definitely don't lethal them. Another Mask of the Tradecrafter. Excavation Explosion's big. Oh boy. It's a hard game of Magic. I don't have any artifact creatures left to block and sack. Now I'm going to have to chump block 2 creatures on their next combat. Which is super rough. I feel like it's still Mishra though. Feels like it gives me the highest chance of a lethal swing next turn now. No good attacks right now though. They're just going to make 1 mega gigantic golem. They've got 1 card left in hand, a mask engraved and a mask on board, so feels most likely to just go for a mega golem. They might try to get a card draw off Courser first to see what they want to do, and that is what they're going to do. They hit the trick to kill Mishra, I'll just scoop them up, that's fine. I need to just keep as many creatures to have any shot of a Crackback lethal anyway. Okay, cool. No way. Oh my god. Top deck an 8/8 ward and make a golem. If they could only make one creature here, I feel like we could get there, but this doesn't feel like lethal. I would have to rivalry the stone retrieval unit, and oh wait, no, I get the 5/5. I get the 5/5. I play a harvester. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attackers. They get drained for 6. They're at 9 life. They have 3 blockers. 3 blockers against 6 attackers means they block the 5/5. They block the 3 power and the 4 power. They take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They go to 9, then they take 7, which isn't lethal. If I had like 1 more mana, I could lethal off Strongbull's effect. Sacking a Powerstone. If I had a lot more mana, I could definitely explosion lethal. I don't think I have any way to survive another attack. I think I'm just too choked on mana. Oh my god, they blocked the wrong creatures. Oh my god. They just needed to block the 4 instead of one of the 3s. They just... Oh, wow. Alright, that was really not a great game of Magic for either player. We had the major misclick punts early on of not playing the Strongbull earlier. That definitely could have easily amounted to at least 1 more damage early, to where we could kill them even if they didn't misplay the final block. And then they just misplayed the final block here and took 1 more damage. Then they could have stopped the Infiltrator instead of a 3 power. As you can see, the Cave Guard took 3, it just blocked our Mishra, I think. Oh my god. That was so lucky. I'm sure even through the Pendragon Strongbull misplay, I probably could have found 1 extra damage at some point there. But certainly none of our misplays were as bad as just accidentally skipping through playing our second play for the turn. That is so lucky. That's egregious. I kind of feel like I cheated a little bit there, getting that one in the end. We're going to be 1-0 heading into game 2. Here we are for game 2. A decent hand here. See how it pans out for us. Our opponent is on green-white with a turn 2 Survivor of Corliss. We'll start things with a Gixian Infiltrator since I drew into an Evolving Wilds to sacrifice for this to be a 3/2 on turn 3. Perimeter Patrol, so they've got a 3/3 now. It's going to be probably a while till I sack anything else, so I'll offer the trade of Infiltrator into a 3/3. It's like a perfectly fine trade to me. Our opponent does not want the trade. We'll discard a mountain and draw a card off Scrapwork Mutt, draw into an Excavation Explosion. Probably going to be our turn 4 play. So I'm not going to Sibling Rivalry this early in the game. So we'll just shoot a patrol and get a Powerstone. Audacity on the Survivor of Corliss to make it a 3/1 First Strike Trample. That is a large creature. Will also be their only creature if I Explosion the Patrol. Hit for 5, they go down to 12, they crack back for 3, we're down to 9, we hit for 5, they're down. Pretty tied in the race if I just Explosion the Patrol, so we should be fine with that. They're down to 12. Life totals are even, but they attack for 3 this turn. We're down to 9 now. They play another Perimeter Patrol. They're at 12 life. We have a Pendragon Strongbull and a Thraxidemon to play here. We can probably Sibling Rivalry them to death soon. Because if I Rivalry now, I would already hit them for 6, 7, 8 damage. Maybe even 9 if the Patrol would get the Powerstone trigger. Yeah, Powerstone happens after the steal, so I'd hit them for 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Put them to 3 life. Yeah, Strongbow Thraxodemon, I think, for this turn, and then we get to kill them next turn. If they don't block the Infiltrator here. They do just trade, then we don't have lethal next turn. Alright. Trade it is. I guess if I played Strongbow first, I could sacrifice Mutt and the Powerstone to make that a 4 toughness creature, but don't think that'd be worth it. So, if they don't have a combat trick, Strongbow could block the Survivor of Corliss. They're sending in here. I'll take that bait. Show me the combat trick. I guess they get to draw a card when the Survivor dies. Alright, no combat trick, just a bluff. Or a misread from our opponent. They play an island. That is their first island, so we might be seeing a splashed in card here. Airlift Chaplain is the play, 1 blocker. It picks up a plains or it's a 2/2. They're going to have it be a 2/2. Alright. If I Sibling Rivalry the Airlift Chaplain, I'm threatening 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage on board. Sibling Rivalry gives me a Powerstone to sack to Strongbow, which is 2 more damage, so 10. 10 is not 11, but if I sack the Powerstone and then sack the Mutt post-combat, that'll be 11. Alright, they've got something here. It could just be Survivor of Corliss's ability. If they don't have any interaction, they are dead. It's Survivor of Corliss's ability, so this is going to be lethal on board, then. Strongbow math is confusing. I probably had lethal at some point last game. Or easily had extra damage that I just didn't factor in at some point. But the Strongbow, it's 2 extra damage if you do it during combat, because it shoots them for 1 and gets +1/+1. Yeah, so we just need to post-combat sack the Mutt. Because if I sacked it pre-combat... I guess if I sacked it pre-combat, it'd be the same amount of damage, because I'd sack the Mutt, and then the Strongbow would hit them for 2 more, instead of the Mutt hitting them for 2, but then I wouldn't have a Mutt to sack post-combat anymore. Yeah, Strongbow math is hard, but we're 2-0. We are heading into game number 3, undefeated so far. Alright, here we are for game 3. Our opponent is on the play. We've got a turn 2 Ashnod's Harvester to try to beat down with. And we've got a Scrapwork Mutt. 2 islands and an Air Marshal will start things off for our opponent. Let's drop the Harvester. Next turn I can go Blast Runner and a 2-drop. They are going to attack in. Hit us down to 18. They're on blue-white. And a Sword of the Meek is their turn 3 play, so we just get to slam in for 3. Let's do it. Boop. They are down to 17. I don't know what I want to discard to this Scrapwork Mutt. Maybe a Thraxodemon. Then I just play Excavation Explosion next turn. Working my way up to a Trench Stalker late game. Yeah, this looks good. We can Explosion next turn. Then we can Trench Stalker, then we can Rivalry to finish our opponent off. Okay. Well, that's all I got. Let's do it. Explosion the Air Marshal. Send in the squad. Exile the soldier from their grave. They're down to 11, and they didn't get to play anything on their turn 4. Here's their 4th land. They have the Yotian Tactician. Sibling Rivalry is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. That is not lethal. But it puts them to 2, which is dead to Explosion, and they don't kill any of our creatures, so I think I still do it. Oh, I have to exile something. I guess I exile my Thraxodemon. Alright, they're just going to scoop them up. 2 life against the red-black with 3 creatures left on board. They are over it. We are going to start this draft off 3-0, getting at least an even win rate. We'll see how far we can take it from here, heading into game number 4. Here we are for game 4 on the play. Turn 2 Scrapwork Mutt. If I draw a bunch of straight gas, I could just discard a Scrapwork Rager. Get that Unearth value off of it later. But if I draw some nonsense that I don't need, I can discard that instead. Get an Infiltrator here. I think I'll postpone the... Well, I have no way to sack anything to the Infiltrator yet. Let's just discard the Rager immediately. I don't want to end up playing the Infiltrator and then my opponent just plays like a 1-1 and it trades off. That would be super bad. I guess I could just discard the Infiltrator at that point. Alright, so we can shoot a Vanguard or play an Infiltrator. I'll play an Infiltrator. For the turn, got a bunch of lands here. I will be pretty happy when we unearth the Mutt later. Lay down arms, exile the Gixian Infiltrator. They exile the Infiltrator over the Mutt, which I'm actually pretty happy with, because it's looking quite unlikely that the Infiltrator is going to be getting any bigger anytime soon, whereas the Mutt will definitely reanimate if they ever kill it. Alright, we found a Junkyard Genius. We have found a sacrifice card. Spotter Thopter's the play, 2/3 flyer, they get to scry a little bit. We'll just shoot that with an explosion. Although that would mean we don't play a Junkyard Genius this turn, but I think that's okay. Yeah, bunch of mana over here. Just explode the Thopter. Get a Powerstone, send in for 2. They have finally chosen to trade the Vanguard into the Scrapwork Mutt. There's an Airlift Chaplain for our opponent now. Mill 3, they just see a bunch of planes to put into their hand. They're going to choose to get the +1/+1 counter instead. We've got a Horned Stone Seeker. Play Junkyard Genius and Stone Seeker. I don't really want to play Unearth the Mutt till I'm going to use the Junkyard Genius's effect as well in the same turn. I'm good to take some damage from Chaplain. I don't need to explosion it immediately. Let's just set up a good board state for Junkyard Genius's ability next turn to pop off. Get a bunch of extra damage in. Alright, they hit us for 2 in the sky. Drop another Airlift Chaplain. And that gets to pick up another creature. That's pretty bad. The Ocean Medic, so it's a lifelinker as well, and it's too big to die to an Excavation Explosion. Goblin Blast Runner is such a draw. Let me count up my mana here. Hold up a minute. So I can play Blast Runner. And I can then unearth a Mutt and have 6 mana up to use Junkyard Genius twice. Oh, my board gets +2/+0 Menace Haste. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all with Menace. I could also Explosion the Chaplain, and they can block nothing from the Menace this turn. But then they get to keep the Medic for the future. And then I would only sack one thing. There's a lot of options here. Let's see what we draw and do first, I think. Another Swamp. I mean, we definitely sack one thing here. It's all Haste Menace. I think it's worth it to explode the Chaplain. For the no blocks this turn. Well, that's 10 damage. It's already more than I thought it was. Yeah, I miscounted somewhere. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know math. Well, if they can't kill Junkyard Genius, they're pretty dead. So that's the hope. There's another Airlift Chaplain. They've got infinite of those. Ooh, and it hit an Unearth card. That's really good for them. Yoshin Tactician makes the Lifelinker 2 power now. They have enough creatures to block both the Menace creatures. Not if they attack. And then they only block 1 Menace creature, but they gain 2 life when they block, which might be enough. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can sack all 3 Power Stones. That takes 9 mana. Which means I give all of these +3, but that doesn't kill them. Because they double block the Blast Runner, because that'll be the bigger one, and then the Stone Seeker is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 power. If I hit pretty much any creature, they were super dead. But land is definitely not dead. So this is going to be 5 power, but they're going to gain 2, so they're going to go to 1 life on the block. They have to double block Blast Runner, and they have to block with the Medic as one of the blockers to gain the 2 life. If I attack with Junkyard Genius, then they double block like this onto the Blast Runner, and then just kill the Genius for free. Like, the Genius doesn't get the Menace, so... Red, black, 1, red, black, 1. I can only do it 2 more times because I only have 2 more black sources anyway, so we can just attack from here. And maybe they'll miss block. Maybe they'll block incorrectly. If they block correctly to where they won't die to me sacrificing everything, then I need to figure out exactly how many Power Stones it's worth sacrificing. So if I sack both Power Stones here, then I am gonna kill Yoshin Medic and this Chaplain and hit them for 5, which feels pretty worth it. So they'll be at 1 life, and they'll have 2 creatures left. But I won't have anything left to sack if I draw another creature to give it haste. So there's an argument for just sacking 1 Power Stone and killing the Medic, but letting the Chaplain stay. I feel like it's better to just kill both creatures here. And put them to 1. And they need another blocker. Or they are already dead on board. 1 Menace creature, 1 non-Menace is enough to kill them, but they draw another blocker. It's a very good one as well, a 4/3 flyer. They can't attack me at all, though. Speaking of drawing really good cards, Sibling Rivalry is kind of nutty here. Just borrow the Harbin. I guess I should do this before combat for the Menace. And... pretty dead. I think it's better to not attack with Genius in case of a trick of some kind. Alright, no tricks of any kind. Sibling Rivalry off the top for the maximum luck. Draw is going to lead us all the way into a 4-0 so far. A super, super lucky draft. Because that was a really lucky draw this game, and our first game was also tremendously lucky that our opponent miscounted their blocks. So, 2 wins that were 100% mega luck based, but still, cannot be unhappy with a 4-0 to start it off as we head into round 5. Alright, here we go for game 5. We gotta draw 1 land, but if we do, the hand is beautiful. We have both of our colors, some explosions, and a Junkyard Genius to play around with. I'm gonna lead with the Harvester as I usually do, since if it trades off, it's not that big of a deal. Being able to unearth it again later. Well, now it is gonna trade off into something that my opponent already just wants to die anyway. Get their Powerstone token. I might even not attack with it. Yeah, with a Junkyard Genius in hand. Double Explosion also to get the Engineer out of the way. Might be better to hold off. We have missed our third land drop. We did not draw land in our first draw step. Combat Thresher is disgustingly good against our 3/1s. Double Strike making it a 1-power first striker, which will kill these before it takes any damage. So we really got to hit that land for the Excavation Explosions now. And we still do not. So Gixian Infiltrator is the play and we'll pass the turn. We're on those coin flip odds on land draws and we have failed twice now. Hopefully we can win our third coin flip. But we have made it to exact coin flip. There's 30 cards in our deck and 15 lands. Let's get a heads sometime soon. Boulder Branch Golem for 4 mana, 3/3, gain some life. That's fine. Much happier with them jamming that out now than saving it for when they get to 7 mana. We do find a land, but it's an Evolving Wilds, so we don't get to play anything this turn. Still good for our Infiltrator, which is nice. I guess I could attack with Infiltrator now and it 1-for-1 trades into their 3/3 or 1/1 double striker, but I'm just going to hold off still. There's a Mishra's Bauble. They can see what's on top of our deck and then draw a card by sacrificing it. 0 mana plays. Send in the Powerstone Engineer again. I'll take another 2. And we draw a Gixian Infiltrator that they know about. I think I just explosioned something here. We have 2 explosions and an Overwhelming Remorse, so it's kind of okay to use these pretty aggressively. That'll help us play Scrapwork Rager and try to draw a card too. Let's get rid of the Double Striker. So that's the only creature on their board that doesn't trade into one of our 3/1s. And I can just let the 3/1 trades happen, I guess. It's actually pretty okay. I'm just going to jam in with everybody here. I'll let Infiltrator trade off too at this point, so we can jam in for at least 3 damage, potentially more. We're too choked on mana to try to get to a board state where it's going to be like Junkyard Genius and buff the whole board. We need way more mana to do that. It's going to take forever to get there. Alright, so they're going to removal spell one of our creatures, trade into another, but we get to keep our Rock Hunter. We're going to crack in for 5. This means our Overwhelming Remorse is only 3 mana now, which is great. Alright, hit a land, that is beautiful. Could play Explosion and an Infiltrator, or a Junkyard Genius and an Infiltrator. If I play Rager, that's the only thing I play this turn. I'm going to keep this Overwhelming Remorse, but I think I'm... Oh wait, no, I can't use the Power Stone into playing Infiltrator. Shoot, so I can only play one thing this turn no matter what, since I can't use the Power Stone, actually, on anything but Scrapwork Rager. Well, if that's the case, I probably just Scrapwork Rager and just trade off our creatures on blocks. Oh, Mishra coming up. And I just need to defend myself now, because there's no way to get into an aggressive position at this much of a mana deficiency. Cannot unload these cards quick enough. Alright, board's clear. They got 4 cards left in hand, we have 5 left in hand. But they have more mana on the board. Repair and Recharge. Pick up a Boulder Branch Golem as a 6/5, fair enough. I can now Overwhelming Remorse for only 1 mana, which is pretty good. No land for the Trench Stalker, so that's not going to happen. Oh my god, I have 1 black source. So even though I can Remorse for 1 mana, if I Remorse, it's the only spell I cast this turn. Unless I top deck a swamp off of Rager, and if I don't top deck a swamp off of Rager, I take 1,000,000 damage from Boulder Branch Golem. Okay, the mana's going even worse than I thought. I guess I gotta just Remorse as my only spell. Unless I want to Excavation Explosion their face when they're at 28. That's a pretty bad play, but I guess it would give me Powerstone. Which is worth considering, but I don't think it's quite worth it. I'm going to Remorse right now before they untap, because Gaia's Gift can give Hexproof. And that is the main green combat trick in the set. Another land, they have basically infinite mana. Yep, play an Ironclaw Crusher. Scrapwork Mutt's a very good one. Drop that down, discard. Weakest card here, probably Infiltrator. Draw a card. Find Transmigrant's Crown. +2/+0 when it dies, draw a card. Equip for 1 black mana. Alright, slap it onto a Mutt for the chump block. Because Lord, am I going to have to chump block. It's going to attack as 8 power. Liberator, which gets bigger every time they cast anything, lets them cast everything at instant speed. Legions to Ashes for my equipment. Well, Explosion's good enough to kill Liberator at least. Can Explosion and play a Blast Runner. Or reanimate a Mutt, but then I don't chump for the turn. Pretty heavily need to chump like every turn. I need to draw into a Sibling Rivalry and have the mana up to sacrifice their Ironclaw Crusher to a Junkyard Genius or something. Incredible draws just never stop. There's the removal for our chump. I don't have the mana to do anything but play a chump blocker every turn. I feel like the line is I have to Scrapwork Mutt. Digging for the Sibling Rivalry or something. Which means I have to discard Trench Stalker because I would need something like Junkyard Genius to cast the to sack to the Sibling Rivalry. But then if I don't have Trench Stalker, I have no way to start gaining life. Maybe getting back into it. I feel like it's the only potential out. Mountain number 6, I guess. Alright, time to chump block with Mishra, claimed by Gix. This was such a disappointing game, because like our combination of cards was strong enough if we hit mana on curve. Well, goodbye. But we just fall way too far behind without hitting the mana. Oh, just not the draws we were looking for. 4-1 as we head into game number 6. Here we are for game number 6. We've got a turn 2 Infiltrator, turn 4 Rager. Our opponent's got a turn 2 Bitter Reunion to set up the draws. Discarding a mountain to draw 2. We hit another Scrapwork Rager. There's a Pendragon Strongbow, turn 3 from our opponent. There is our 6th land. Turn 3 for us. Pass turn. Take the Strongbow hit. Down to 18. There's a Strongbow of our own, but it's turn 4 now. I think we want to run out the Scrapwork Rager. draw into a Rock Hunter. Pass the turn. And there's a Disfigure on the Gixian Infiltrator, so I can't stack up a double block onto the Strongbow. So I will take another 2. Another Battlefield Butcher for our opponent. If they don't play any artifacts, then a single Rock Hunter is big enough to trade into the Strongbow. Let's play Rock Hunter, Strongbow this turn. Pass the turn. These Battlefield Butchers aren't a huge deal until they have a lot of creatures in their grave where they can use the abilities for super cheap. Unfortunately, they have the artifact for the Strongbow, so it's a 3/4 essentially. Could still double block. Excavation Explosion, still just a 3/4 Strongbow, but that would kill both our Rager and our Rock Hunter, but I feel like it's probably worth it. If they attack in. They don't attack in, that way they can sack both artifacts to it later. Land number 7 for us. Well, land number 8. Stopped counting. Can't Sibling Rivalry anything well, because they don't have any artifact creatures right now, so we just need to Scrapwork Rager and find some kind of gas. It is Mishra claimed by Gix. That is some kind of gas. Kind of hard to attack in. 2/3 and a couple 1/4s. I guess we could attack into the 1/4s without losing any creatures or anything. Oh. One of the strongest bomb rares in the format. Tyrant of Kerr Ridges it is. A 4/5 flyer that deals 4 to any target when it hits the board and has fire breathing. And haste thanks to their bitter reunion. I think it's one of the top 3 most powerful rares in the set, and it is certainly going to take it from us here. Because Mishra's not enough to come back from that. They hit us for 8 damage in the sky next turn and then just sack 2 things to Strongbow. I can't even afford to play Mishra and Rivalry, so all I could do is I could Rivalry the Tyrant and deal some damage to them to send a message, or I could play Mishra and try to get some attacks in to gain a little bit of life and maybe not die, but that means I have less blockers, which means that I just die anyway. Yeah, I mean, they just hit us for 8 or even 9 thanks to their Energy Refractor and then Strongbow 2 artifacts. It's 11 damage. I can Mishra and drain them for 2 to be at 12. But if I do that, I only have 1 blocker up because both Ragers are tapped, which means they can just attack me with the Battlefield Butchers and the Strongbow, and then I still die. So I'm just dead no matter what. Alright, we flooded out a little bit and ran up against one of the strongest rares in the format. Not a lot we could do there. 4 and 2. It'll be. I guess I'll really go screw myself then. Jesus Christ, Arena. No. I don't think giving my opponent a second Tyrant of Kerr Ridges off the top when I was already dead on board was a particularly fun way to end that game. Here we are now for game number 7. No Black Source, but I can play Blast Runner into Strongbow and Rager off of any land. So I'm going to keep it here. We do hit Evolving Wilds immediately, so I can turn 2, crack that to get a Swamp. That'll buff the Blast Runner and set up the Mishra later. Playing against the Black-White. Black-White is a lot of mana value 3 or less creatures, so one of the most aggressive archetypes in the format, similar to ours. Grab our Swamp. Attack for 3 with Menace. They're going to crack back at us with their Thraxodemon. They do have flash creatures in Black-White, but I think it's just the Ambush Paratrooper, which is just a 1/2, which isn't going to kill our 1/2 right now. There's a Disfigure on the Goblin Blast Runner during our end step. There's a Warlord's Elite for a 4/4, which does enter the battlefield untapped. So if I slam down Mishra, I'm not attacking with anybody right now, but I do have a Mishra set up. Feels kind of worth it. And then I can set up the Trench Stalker before I play the Rager. If they have removal for Mishra, they've got removal for Mishra. Scrapwork Rager is not going to draw a removal spell out of their hand. Running that out first. Helm of the Host. I'm in danger. That's going to give them a copy of whatever they equip every single turn. So they put it on their 4/4 next turn, and they're going to get a 4/4 every turn alongside everything else they can do with their mana. That is a very, very bad time for me. What do I do about it? Honestly, nothing I can do about it, so we try to outrace it somehow. Can only play one spell this turn. We probably drop down the Trench Stalker as the creature that is the most likely to get to attack in by a lot. If I hit another black source, maybe Junkyard Genius plays can end up being pretty good. But for now, I think we're on the Rager. Rager into Trench Stalker attacks. Right. Don't find any land, find an Excavation Explosion, which is a fine card. But for now, Trench Stalker Mishra is pretty good. Alright, clear out the Thraxodemon and one of their tokens. They're down to just the 4/4, but next turn they get to get another 4/4 without tapping any mana, which means they have all their mana up to play a bunch more creatures, whatever they have in their hand. And Hero of the Dunes. Oh my god. So their whole board gets +1/+0, and they reanimate the creature they just trumped with, and they get another Warlord's Elite. And then eventually they can move the Helm onto the Hero of the Dunes, and then their whole board's going to get like +2, +3, +4, and every time they get a creature from Helm of the Host, they also get a creature from Grave, so they have like infinite chump blocks with this Thraxodemon. They're straight up, there's just no shot. I don't know what on earth I'm supposed to do now. Arena got really mad at me for going 4-0. Probably still is eventually some kind of Junkyard Genius nonsense we can do, so we slam it down. Maybe just Explosion the Hero of the Dunes before they can start making Helm of the Host copies of it. I mean, I guess if they move the Helm of the Host to the Hero of the Dunes, that's all they do with their mana next turn. They're not going to have any creatures in grave for it to reanimate. So we can spend this turn playing another Strongbow for now. But I will want to kill that Hero of the Dunes before they end up with any creatures in grave. Start duplicating with the Helm. Alright, they're going to fill that grave with Airlift Chaplain. Sure enough, there is a creature in the graveyard. They could put it into their hand, though, off the Chaplain's ability to cast an Ambush Paratrooper with their remaining 2 mana. Alright, they get the +1/+1 counter, get another 4/4. They're leaving that in for the Hero of the Dunes later, so I think we want to explode the Hero of the Dunes. Is there any way to lethal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 creatures on board? 2, 3, 4 attackers here. They block 3 of them, they get drained for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 of them get in and they're at 10 life. 2 of them get in for like 4 damage. Don't... I mean, it's a double pump potentially from Junkyard Genius. I could Explosion single pump. It's 5 blockers. Oh yeah, that's what I was accounting for. Okay, I think we Explosion the Hero of the Dunes, so they can't. They can't Helm of the Host it. But then the big question is to Scrapwork Rager or to go for it with Junkyard Genius right now. Soul Partition Mishra. Well, that's super bad for me. That's 6 mana to recast, and I definitely can't go for it this turn then. Alright, Scrapwork Rager then. 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll have 8 mana plus 2 treasures, basically 10. That is enough mana to play Mishra and then give Menace and Haste to the board next turn, thanks to the Power Stones. So I can still go for it next turn. Which honestly I think I'll do, because if I just don't go for it, I'm going to super die. Whoa. If they have something that buffs the whole field and kills me here, then sure. I'll die. I'll just take it all. I'm just going to go all in on the next turn Mishra. Hope they don't have the instant speed removal for Mishra. If they do have instant speed removal for Mishra, then I'm also still dead. Unless maybe Junkyard Genius without Mishra kills them. Alright, Thraxodemon. They have triple white up. They already cast a Soul Partition. How many instant speed white removal spells are there? I know there's the instant speed black one. Okay, Recommission. 1 white mana instant speed removal spell. There's got to be super few. So... oh, that's a horrible tap. I need to hold up black mana for the Junkyard Genii. Genii, is that how you do it? I can't play Stone Seeker while I do this. It's basically 100% I kill them here, bust, right? They can block 2 creatures though, so I might kill them here. They only block 2 things. Alright. Maths for blockers, I suppose. That is what the kids say, right? They look pretty dead. Dead on board? Just click through. Alright. That was a close game. But opponent with the aggressive attack there means that we get to crack back for lethal. Maybe if they just sat on their butt a little bit there, held behind those 4/4s for a little while, they could have maybe got there. We would have had to do some much harder math on when it's worth it to attack or not. And I don't think we could have attacked if they didn't attack with anybody there. We'd have to sit and wait, maybe find a sibling rivalry at some point to try to tip the scales. But I think we're pretty happy with our opponent's last attack there, so we are now 5-2, heading into round number 8. Alright, here we are for game number 8. We've got a turn 2 Horned Stone Seeker to get some menace going in. Our opponent is immediately getting protection from multicolored. I guess our Junkyard thing cannot attack into that and cannot block that. Basically just going to be a 1 mana 1/2 though. It is a soldier, so it is a good creature type for our opponent. Let's drop the Horned Stone Seeker. That's going to give us a Power Stone if our opponent doesn't kill it. To play a Transmigrant's Crown next turn, we could play the Crown and the Thraxodemon. Nice and mana efficient. Uses all 4 of our mana. Air Marshal's coming in hot. We'll take the 2. Down to 17, and there's a Third Path Savant. So they have set up a good double block for the Stone Seeker, where we kill a 1/2 and lose our 2/2 menace, which is not a good deal for us. I think I actually want to play a 3-power attacker against the Savant here, because I kind of want to put the Crown onto the Stone Seeker, even though I will lose my Power Stone when the Stone Seeker dies. I don't know, I guess it just makes it a 4/2, which still only trades into one of their creatures, but it kills the 2/3, which is nice. Whoa. Alright, I'll race. I've got an Excavation Explosion and a Sibling Rivalry, which can really screw up our opponent's math when it comes to racing us. So I will not take trades here. I will try to race them. Hold all their mana up. Okay. This is interesting. I don't know what's going to happen here. Guess I want 3 mana up for Explosion or Thraxodemon plus Blast Runner as my play for the turn. So let's just spend 1 black. Put this on Rock Hunter, so if they block with Sentinel, I draw a card. If they don't, they take a bunch. It's an ambush paratrooper, maybe? Double block Stone Seeker with that. I could see that. The 1/2 flyer with flash. Could be like the deal 3 to a tapped creature or something. It is the ambush paratrooper. Okay, we'll kill the paratrooper. This is fine. Not getting too much value off of the Powerstone. Alright, slam down a bunch of creatures. If I thought of ambush paratrooper a little earlier, the better line probably was to put crown onto the menace creature, because it gets in for a little bit more damage if they don't have ambush paratrooper, and then if they do, it turns into a very profitable trade for us. Whereas Rock Hunter, I don't know, I guess it makes the Rock Hunter trade pretty bad of 3/1 into 1/2, but it is what it is. Opponent has a single 4/4 up. If I steal that, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're not dead. But I take 9 on the crackback. If they have a combat trick, they'll kill me on the crackback. But I can put them to 3. Whatever. I'm just gonna play like a mono red. Put them to dead to excavation explosion and then hope that they don't kill us with a combat trick. Moment of truth. Do they have a +2/+2 somewhere? Oh no. 4th mana means it could be Yoshin Tactician, give all their soldiers +1/+1, which would be +3 damage. Put me to -1. They don't have it. They don't have it if they're just attacking with 1 creature here. Keeping those defenses up. Those defenses. Airlift Chaplain, they're tapped out of blue mana, so no counter spells here. Three damage to their face, unless they have life gain at instant speed for 1 white mana. Which might actually exist. I know there's a hexproof trick for 1 white. I don't remember if it's like give a creature hexproof and gain 2 or something. I think it's like a scry. Yeah, it's a scry. There it is. Does not gain them any life. So that's going to be game. We are now 6-2 as we head into the final boss. Final game of Magic for today, win or lose. Looks like we might be mythic just in time for the launch of Lord of the Rings next week. We can keep this up next drafts. Here we are for the final boss. We are really hoping to hit lands again, but we are on the draw this time, so hopefully it works out a little better than the last time we kept a 2-lander, but we will find out. A Blast Runner turn 1 and Infiltrator turn 2, a Mishra if we can hit that 4 mana, and if we hit just 1 more, we've got a couple Excavation Explosions. Alright, our opponent drops a Swamp Pass as a turn. We're going to go for the turn 1 Goblin Blast Runner. Drawn into an Ashnod's Harvester to play on turn 2 instead, which I might do. There's a Scrapwork Mutt from our opponent. Don't love the Blast Runner trade, but we don't have super consistent sacrifice, so I think I'll still offer that. Let's get 1 damage in. And then Harvester is going to play really well against a Mutt in their graveyard if they don't manage to immediately reanimate it. No trade takes place. I think I still play the 3/1 over the 2/1 here. Even if I might not be exiling a Scrapwork Mutt from graveyard anymore. Gixian Skullflayer. So in their end step, if a creature died, they get a +1/+1 counter. No, in their upkeep, if there are 3 or more creatures in their grave, they get a +1/+1 counter. So that's going to take some time. And pretty bad against the Harvester. We've hit all of the lands we need, so we are going to be able to play Mishra next turn, which makes kind of just playing out creatures pretty tempting. But I can also just Explosion the Skullflayer. I don't have to worry about that later. I could Explosion the Mutt and then attack with Harvester, exile it from their grave, and all they could do is trade the Harvester for Skullflayer. That actually seems kind of spicy too. Alright, cool. So our 2-drop does get to trade up into their 3-mana creature. They drop an Argothian Opportunist, which gives them a Powerstone of their own. Let's just slam down Mishra, claimed by Gix. No attacks with our 1-2, unfortunately. There's a Sarenth Steelseeker, so every time they get an artifact on board, they get to surveil 1. Yeah, look at the top card. If it's a land, put it into their hand. If not, they can put it into the grave. So I kind of like exploding that thing, because they need lands pretty badly right now. Yeah, let's explode that. Send in Mishra, cast an Infiltrator. Overwhelming Remorse for Mishra. Unfortunate. If I had done Ashnod's Harvester, I would have kept them off of Overwhelming Remorse because they would have had one less creature in grave. Still going pretty well for this. Scrapwork Rager is a great draw, and hitting 2 in a row is even better. Good grief. Offer the Infiltrator trade, which they might take. Nope, they'll take the 2, go down to 13. There's a Scrapwork Mutt again. Discard a card, draw a card. They discard a Gigamole to draw a card. It's a pretty nice Gravedigger effect. They mill and then pick up any creature they milled. Or they just get a 4-mana 3/4. Our opponent's got the Titania's Command sleeves on. Hopefully they don't have a Titania's Command in their deck, because that's another one of the unstoppable rares available in this format. It's a 6-mana sorcery in green, where you can make like 2 2/2s and then put 2 +1/+1 counters on your whole board. So it's like 2 4/4s and buff the rest of your board, which is absolutely absurd. I don't think I want to Overwhelming Remorse, just in case my opponent has some kind of big spooky creature that they just can't afford right now. So I'm just going to attack with a bunch of 2-power creatures. Not Remorsa. A Scrapwork Mutt or anything right now. Alright, hit quite a bit. They're down to 6 now. Harvester sacks itself for the Infiltrator to get bigger, but there is the Disfigure on the Infiltrator. Does mean I'm holding up Overwhelming Remorse if they cast one big blocker here. Gigamole is one big blocker. Don't know if it's worth killing it immediately, just in case I top deck something that would make it lethal damage this turn. I feel like it's probably not. I just hold on to it. Yeah, we just hit a land. I mean, if I do Remorse the Gigamole, then I put them to 3 life if they trade into a Rager, or 2 if they kill my Blast Runner. Or I could exile Gigamole and just attack with 2 Ragers, and then they go to 2 where they have bad trades. They only have 4 mana up. It's probably worth it. Wouldn't be surprised though if they slam down like an Obstinate Baloth or something and then stabilize from there. Thanks to having used my Remorse. Alright, I'm gonna hold on to the Rager ability for next turn. so that I get to attack with another creature along with all my stuff. Sky Fisher Spider, sack the... Oh, they can't sack artifacts with that one. I forgot about that. Well, Rivalry's a pretty busted draw, and we'll just get the freebie again. There's the concession from our opponent. That is not exactly how I would have liked to win the final game of Magic. That was not super fair. I believe this was the game where I kept a two-lander, and I said hopefully we don't get a repeat of the other time I kept a two-lander, because that was the game that turned into a loss because we just did not hit like any lands quickly at all. So our opponent just got to keep playing stuff throughout the game, and we were really stuck to playing one thing a turn. Well, it did play out like that game, but it played out like the reverse of that game, where our opponent instead was the one who really missed a lot of early land drops and then a lot of late game land drops, and just didn't really get to establish much of a board state or play a lot of cards overall. So kind of a bummer of a way to end it. Not a super fair game of Magic, but pretty good way to end it if you only consider the record of the event. We got pretty lucky today with a couple of our opponents getting extremely unlucky, especially that last round and the first round. So 7-2 I think is probably above average of where this deck goes. I think Black-Red is a very powerful archetype in this format, and I think this is a relatively powerful deck in general, but it's not quite like a top-tier Red-Black Sacrifice deck. I think a lot of that is just that it's been a long time since I've drafted Brothers War, so there's some things that probably do differently. Like the Infiltrators played out pretty dang poorly. Thraxodeme I don't think we used a single time. So trading a few of these out for like some more Scrapwork Mutts maybe. The Sibling Rivalries actually kind of crushed it. But yeah, maybe some more cheap removal instead of Infiltrators, Thraxodemons, maybe Disfigures or Scrapwork Mutts, stuff like that. Definitely things that could be improved about the deck. But it played out probably as well as it was ever going to do. At a 7-win run, 7-2, got to play all the games out of it. Everything else I think went pretty well. Trenchstalker was a bit slow, but it was pretty huge. Scrapwork Ragers ended up being pretty good value. Again, a bit slow. Probably want a more streamlined, super aggressive version if you want the perfect build of this. But I think they played out quite well. I'm pretty happy with them. And I'm super happy with the Stone Seekers, the Mutt, the Harvester. That was fantastic. Blast Runner also felt a little low on the sack effects. Explosions were great. Remorse was great. Crown I only got to play like once or twice maybe maximum, so I don't really know how I feel about that. But it seemed fine. Yeah, not a bad run at all. Not a bad run. We are going to be 7-2. We are going to claim our prizes, be in the money for the day, getting 950 gems and 2 packs out of the 750 gem events. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons very much for supporting this channel, as well as you for watching these videos. If you're interested in seeing more like this, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.